Hi, this is Vivian with My Spiritual GPS through Expansion Network. Welcome again to our weekly show. So today we're going to be talking about love because of Valentine's Day and relationships. So when we talk about those things, we always look for not just relationship with a partner or your spouse, but also your relationship with yourself. Because in the energy world, remember, you are the magnet of your own universe, right? Everything emanates through you, comes from you, and comes to you. So you create life based on your frequency, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're maybe saying, and how you're acting. Therefore, the result that you get is based on you. You have probably heard of the book, The 5 Love Languages. In fact, a lot of my clients, when I do seminars and workshops, I share with them the 5lovelanguages.com/quizzes, because you want to find out what your love language is. What does that mean? So let's say, so my mom loves to give gifts. Normally, we tend to express the way we would like to receive love. I love words of affirmation. That's my primary, followed by physical touch. Therefore, when people share positive feedback or make comments that will help me in my world, my business, my relationship, those are very welcoming for me, right? So you have to know what your partner's love language is, because you have to be able to fulfill that need, so to make them feel good and satisfied. Like you're filling up a tank, right? You're making deposits. So the more deposit you make, the relationship gets better, because you are brimming, like your cup is full, right? You're overflowing with love. Now you have to let your partner know, communication has to be present, that whatever your love language is, that's what he or she gives you back. So then you have deposit after deposit after deposit. So then when something not so good happens, because that's like a withdrawal in a bank, right? It doesn't, you're not like a little bit of you don't drop into negative or overdraft because you're not at zero. Like if you and your partner has given each other a lot of deposits, right? You have plenty, like reserves, so that one little mistake doesn't really offset the relationship. Now, I wish it's that simple, but that's a very, very effective tool, right? So your relationship with yourself is how you attract your partner. So if you have a big need, so you're kind of needy, you'll notice that you may find a partner that actually just loves to give and you receive, because you complement each other, which is a good thing, right? But then after a while, if the person opposite of you always gives and you always receive, one day the scale will tip over and then he's out of fuel, out of gas. And then it's your turn, right? So it's this balance of giving and receiving. So how can you actually be able to give without depleting your own reserves? That's where the self-love comes in, right? We talked about that last week on our video about unconditional self-love. If you are full, you're probably thinking, well, what else can he give me if I'm already full? That's the beauty of it, because it's the overflow that you're giving and receiving to each other. And therefore you complement each other in a way that you create this beautiful magic. It's like a ball of energy between the two people, because even in marriage, you can see the symbol of the ring and another ring, and there's just the little middle portion, right? So you shouldn't be losing yourself in a relationship. In other words, you're independent, the other person was independent before you got started. So the concept of the other half, remember that in a lot of the teachings we heard from religion, or perhaps some thought that you learn from other people, even from society, that you complete each other. Does that mean you're half broken? Does that mean you're not complete? So the goal when you're doing your spiritual GPS, like you know exactly where you are in your position, if you have this subconscious thought that someone has to fulfill your need because you can't do it yourself, you do have a little bit of the victim and the needy role there. And that's okay for a short time, but not forever, because the other person, again, is not God. He doesn't have unlimited energy to provide you with that. Therefore, when you bring yourself up, fill yourself up technically with divine energy, right? Like, what's my purpose here in this planet? What is it that I need to release so that I can actually meet my purpose? What happens is you elevate yourself to the point that your energy gets very big, very, very big, and you're owning your own self. Therefore, you're more attractive to this other person. It's very interesting. So you think strong women, they may not have a partner, but it's probably because you may have a limiting thought that you're pushing someone away. Like, I don't need anybody. So if that's a thought, then yeah, it's hard for you to find a partner. But it's when you're allowing others to contribute to your life, because all of us are important, okay? All of us have a value. All of us have our own gifts. And it doesn't matter if you didn't finish college, right? It doesn't really matter if you didn't go to school. You still are good at something. You're good at organizing, you're good at decluttering, maybe you're good at problem solving, but you were just not given a chance to do all that. So if you are good at something, embrace that. What does that mean? Like, you may be good at one thing, meaning to say you don't have to think in order to do that thing, whatever that skill is. But a lot of times you take that for granted because maybe you didn't get enough appreciation or recognition when you were younger, right? When you were a child. So all these things shape our present reality, just to let you know. It might be your subconscious thought is running so much you don't even know it's running in the background. It's like a tape recorder that goes and goes, and you just do the thing that you normally do. So for example, during Valentine's Day, if you're expected to go out, right, with your partner, but then you get upset because the partner did not plan a trip or did not plan a dinner or a lunch for you. So that's an expectation. It's an expectation to have that because the whole society, the whole world is doing it, right? So when you release the expectation, by the way, because you can create whatever Valentine scene you like. It doesn't have to look like everybody else. You don't need to always get a flower or a chocolate or have a dinner, that's provided by your partner. You create the magic. It could be you guys are just sitting holding hands in the backyard and just talking about life, or talking about, like having a really good connection. That's really a good relationship because you're open, you can listen. Listening, by the way, doesn't mean you have to think about what to say next. I learned this from someone when I attended a seminar. Listening means you're fully aware and present with your partner. Listening, you can even repeat what they're saying, and you'll appreciate that. Like for us that have words of affirmation as a love language, when I'm saying something and my partner repeats it, I really feel heard. Like you really feel like, oh my God, he's understanding me. That's how my brain goes there, right? Instead of saying, no, that's not right, or, oh, you should do it this way. Okay, those are like, what? You're not even listening. So listening it doesn't mean that you're gonna wait for your turn to talk. That is not listening. Listening is really listening, like hearing the person's words, even feeling the expression of the sentences, whatever story that they're sharing with you, right? And then if they're asking you to respond, respond. But if sometimes we just want to talk, women love talking. We have a bigger brain center. Our speech center, by study, if you look at scientific studies, is bigger than men's speech center. That's part of the reason why women love to talk. All right, so another book I want to share with you is if you are married with children or without children, it's called How to Have a New Husband by Friday. And I read this, it's by Dr. Lehman. I was going by Barnes and Noble, and then I saw the book and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta have this book. And it talks about how simple men are and how trainable they are actually. So we women can be a little bit complicated in that department, and that's okay. When we pick our partner, a lot of times there's a lot of karma there. You've heard of karma, right? And I wanted to explain to you what karma is. So for most people, karma is a negative word, right? Like you do something, let's say you murdered someone in another lifetime and now they have to get back at you. That's called direct karma, okay? There's 3 kinds of karma, by the way: direct, indirect, and partial indirect. So let me explain. So direct is like what I do to someone comes back to me. It's like we have mirror neurons. So whatever I did to one person, it may come back to me from another person, but in a negative way if I've done something wrong to this person, okay? Or my intention is there to do something wrong. Now, indirect karma means, let's say I was Catholic and then this other person that I met was Muslim in another life. So we know that the 2 religions clash, right? It's about belief systems. So it could be that the partner I have now, we have 2 opposing religions in the past, and we have to somehow, like God has intervened and said, you guys need to figure out how to talk to each other and really be in harmony with each other. Perhaps that's one of our soul lessons and purposes that we have to do in this lifetime. So if the person's from a different religion, like I said, he was Muslim and then I was Catholic, somehow we would meet, okay? Very physically attracted to each other in the beginning, and then, eventually you get married and have kids, and you learn to work things through, right? You learn to not be triggered by their belief systems and yours as well, vice versa. And when you're neutral, in other words, there's no weakness anymore in you being together, even if it's religion in the past, because what we remember in our subconscious mind is everything that happened before. So what happens with 2 people in a relationship, if you're always fighting, that's not a very good thing, because you're bringing up more karma, more stories, and more pictures that you have to clear in the energetic world. So these are things that you fought before, but now perhaps you're being called not to do that, right? So if you keep on fighting, usually it ends up in a lot of separation and divorce. So if you can work it out differently in this lifetime, then that karma gets resolved. That's indirect karma. Partial indirect karma is perhaps you have kids and your children have a karma with, let's say, your husband's grandparents. In other words, somehow these 2 people have to meet in this lifetime, and they have to resolve whatever issues they had before, again in another lifetime. So that's a partial indirect karma. And when you start to clear the energy of that, in other words, you start to recognize that the fight or the conflict is not because of present time situation, but because of something else that happened before. So when you can set that aside, like just return that back into the past life and let it be part of the past, because now you have a different relationship to cultivate, that would truly allow the family to thrive and connect properly, right? Because the biggest challenge we have in a relationship is our family members, believe it or not, right? It could be our mom, it could be our husbands, it could be our cousins, our brothers or sisters. Why is that? That explains the reason energetically is that karma. So the more you are really sure of who you are, because a lot of times we are not 100% us, because we were programmed by parents and sisters and religion, culture, tradition. When you can move that out of your field and go, okay, so that's their thought, does that apply to me now? If it doesn't, you don't need to follow that, because it doesn't work for you anymore, right? See, absolute truth is the divine is always within each one of us. But if we don't connect, we can't really tell what's good for us, right? So what's good for you may not be good for your mother, and that's okay. right? So when you have a good relationship with yourself, you're able to understand that she is who she is. You don't need to correct her, your mother, or anybody in your family. They can just be, you can allow them to be themselves, because they might be working on another lesson and another soul path and purpose, and you happen to be there. But when you're already older and you have your own life, you got to create your own life, right? You have a different path. All of us have a different path. All of us have a different purpose, right? So the more you become you and your relationship with yourself gets established, you'll notice that the next ring, because this is you, right? You're the magnet of your own universe. The next one is relationship. So when you love and honor and respect yourself, it's interesting, you'll find that kind of frequency around you. It's so easy to connect with those people that you want to attract, because you are vibrating at that frequency. So let go of everything else that doesn't belong to you. Give it back to them, right? To their higher self, so they can process it. The reason why they're dumping it on you is because they can't handle it. That's why they're complaining and blaming and criticizing and making you feel rejected or guilty. So delete all that, right? Like release that. And then make yourself neutral and strong to that particular energy, so it doesn't trigger you anymore. That's just what neutral means. It doesn't trigger you anymore. So your relationships can actually grow and blossom like a flower. So give yourself the gift of loving yourself this Valentine's week. And I want you to really be happy with who you are and who you have become. So if you don't have anyone, it's perfect. Give yourself flowers. If you like flowers, say positive things to yourself. Like look in the mirror and just say positive things to yourself if words of affirmation is your love language. And remember, it's not always the other person. See, when you start to go do this, like blaming everybody for everything, it's really, you gotta look, right? Because look at the fingers. This points to the person, 3 fingers point toward you, and this one like up there, right? So you have more fingers pointing at you when you start to blame someone or shame someone about something. Take a look at how you're contributing to that situation. And I want you to focus on, what is your dream relationship? Like, how does it look like? Because when you focus on that, then all your actions, even if it's difficult in the beginning, right? It's uncomfortable to change. And that's okay, because you're growing. So if you're focused on this and your partner agreed to develop or improve the relationship that you have now and get to that dream relationship, it's magical, because now you have a project to work on, right? It's not a problem, it's just a project. Think of it as a project. So when the two of you are working together, not just one, but two, relationship means 2 people, right? So when your relationship is going towards something, like you have to have a target. You can't really like, oh yeah, I wish I have a better partner. But what does better mean? Like you got to be a little more clear. What does better mean? Does that mean he opens the door every time, you know, you're there in the car? Or does it mean he gives you flowers every single birthday or holiday? Like you have to know what you want. Because if you cannot tell the guy, they can't really guess your mind, right? They cannot try to like interpret, what does she mean by that? Does it mean bringing you coffee every morning? Just say it to them. Like, men are very easy if you understand their language, because us women, sometimes we say something but we mean something else. So you really have to know yourself, right? Men, when they say I don't like it, don't try to force them to like it, because that's what it means. They don't like it. Or I'd rather have coffee rather than tea. If they say that, don't try to influence them by giving tea because you like tea and you don't like coffee. Okay, so pay attention to, are you pushy? Are you controlling the person? Are you manipulating the situation? Because if you are, it's again this, right? 3 fingers and 1 to the person, and you're saying you need to change. That's a control issue. It's a control issue. So do you like being controlled? If you don't like being controlled, then don't do it to someone. It doesn't work very well, right? Because the thing is, when you're feeling out of control, you don't feel good. Emotionally, you're like, you're like overwhelmed and confused and stressed out, right? So control your own thoughts, you yourself, right? What are you thinking? Because if it's very negative and toxic, if you can't handle it anymore, you're going to have to complain or say something negative to someone. And the other person on the phone, I mean, after a while, it's like, is she going to stop? Is she going to stop? When is she going to stop? So, give yourself, that's part of self-love. If you're one of those people that don't complain, but you take on people's complaining and negative talk, give yourself this love by putting a golden rose in front of you and the person and connect that to God and earth. Let it be a filter. It's almost like you have a dividing line, and you can listen. And when you start to feel your body feeling like not so good anymore because you're hearing all these negativity, you need to interrupt the pattern by saying, oh, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom, or oh my God, I forgot I have an appointment. So you need to respect your own energy and have that boundary, because if you tend to heal people by listening to them, you become the one that they dump on. Like you're like a garbage disposal system of some sort, okay? So love yourself by not doing that all the time and having a good boundary saying, this doesn't feel good to me. You don't have to say it to the other person. You do have to interrupt them and find another thing to do, or turn it off, right? Like put the phone down and politely say goodbye. So I want you to love yourself this week, because it's really, really important before you can actually attract this love of your life, right? This beautiful relationship that you dream of. And I know it's possible. I've gone through the whole spiritual interference issue with the relationship, and it took a while. However, it is very possible to have a different life together, even if you have differences and conflicts. And you can arrive at this frequency wherein there's a good flow of energy back and forth. And you can say something, express yourself, like some days you don't feel good, and yet still be heard, and you still love each other after. Okay, there is such a thing. In other words, you're free to talk your truth, speak your truth, and he's also free to speak his truth. Yet you don't have to be right? You can allow each other space to express each other without being right. Again, because being right is a control issue. Okay? All right. Well, thank you. I hope that helps you with your relationship with yourself and with your partner. Tune in again, and I will see you next week. This is Vivian with my spiritual GPS through Expansion Network. Bye.